Hi, I'm Brian, Service Manager at Whole Latte Love, and this week on Cribs, I'm taking you through my Profitec Pro 600.
Really, on Cribs, huh? Okay.
On Cribs, yeah.
Okay, cool.
You know it, man.
Cool, cool.
You got it.
Let's take a look inside.
Let's take it. All right, we're gonna start in the back as usual. Got our water reservoir. On the reservoir, you have your valve, ball spring. This is what opens to release the water. If there was water in here and I went like that, it'd be all over your floor.
Thank you.
I'll do that later.
Okay. The magnet?
Yeah, the magnet.
The
Hello.
Yeah.
All right, so inside here, you see we're in this corner. You got a little cap. You take that cap off, and you've got your magnetic float. This is what communicates with your sensor to let them know that water's in there. So as you put water in, this floats up, and that little white cap there is actually a magnet. When that magnet goes in front of this sensor, it senses that there is water in there. So if this is ever stuck at the bottom or goes missing, your machine won't know that there's water in there.
And it won't heat if it doesn't think it has water, right?
Exactly. That's no good for anyone. We all need our morning espresso, right?
Yes.
All right, so as I mentioned, that's your water or your magnetic sensor right there. This is the reservoir holder or reservoir insert. This is normally screwed in from the bottom of the machine with two 3mm screws. I've just taken them out so you don't have to be bored with watching me unscrew things. On the bottom here is the reservoir valve socket. So that receives the valve that's on the bottom of your reservoir and is held on with just this plastic nut here. You can actually take that right out. I'm just going to put this on so we don't lose it. If you look inside here, you will see this little pin. That's what pushes up on that valve, on the little ball bearing in there. So if you're ever having issue drawing water, a real quick and easy thing to check is you don't even have to take the machine apart at all. Just pull your reservoir out and look in there and just make sure that that pin hasn't somehow broken. Not very common at all, but something to check.
But a possibility.
Yep. Here's back view of that sensor. It's just the two wires that go to it. Communicate with the board. Back here, so you see we have two lines coming off. This is going to be the same with any of the vibratory pumps machines with Profitec ECM. Is the top one is a return line, and this is the outgoing line. This tube, you just look right back there, is going straight to your OPV. That's the only thing that it goes off of. So
we'll talk more about that.
Yep, we'll get to that one later. So water comes out through here. This part right here is a inline particle filter. If you pull it out and look at it, there's a really fine mesh screen right in the middle of there. And its only job is just to catch anything that may get into your water, you know, some loose grounds or something like that. So if you're ever having suction problems, always check there as well. You just pop that, pull the tubes right off, look in there, blow it out.
Okay.
Real quick thing to check. Okay. So, swing around here. This over here. So, water line comes over here to your vibratory pump. So, on the vibratory pump, you'll see you've got your power coming in, and on here you also have a little fuse. If your pump were to excessively run or something is failing on it and it starts to overheat, this will actually blow. It's not resettable, so if that ever happens, usually happens for a reason. So first try to figure out what that reason is, but you would have to replace this, and that's just pulling plug from right here and right here. You just replace that whole part there.
Okay.
Tuck that back in there.
I'm guessing that doesn't happen very often.
No, not really.
And these machines will time out, right, after the pump runs?
Yes, yeah, they have a safety feature on programmed into the board, so that if it runs over a certain amount of time, it'll automatically shut down the machine. It'll act sort of like if it's out of water.
Okay.
So.
Good to know.
If that happens, you just turn it off and turn it back on, and it should start trying again. But if it has done that, I definitely recommend letting it stay off for a while so that motor can, or that pump can cool off some.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I can get to the tricky part here. If you can see
Be
through
hard
my
to see.
rat's nest.
Yeah.
So it comes out of the pump here. You have a little T intersection here. If you were to go straight ahead, you come to this fitting that goes to a little capillary. That is your pump gauge. Shows the pressure coming off the pump. Okay. If you go down to this braided hose here, can't see a whole lot, so let me turn you some
Follow around the
more.
other side, yeah.
Yep. That's
There's that
this
hose.
hose right here. And that brings us to another T. So this T is going to decide whether or not you are going to your service boiler or to your brew boiler. So let's start at our brew boiler here. Right off the T, you have a non-return valve. Works very similarly to the valve that is inside your reservoir here. The incoming pressure this way can push past, but if it meets resistance coming this way, it pushes it shut.
Can't really go the
so,
other way.
Yep, so you can
one
only
way.
go one way.
Okay.
Okay, so right off of that, you're gonna hit another T here. Straight ahead from the T is your overpressure valve, or OPV. This is what you use to adjust the pressure in your system. Since there is no adjustable pressure on the vibratory pump, this is what serves that purpose. To be able to adjust that, you don't need to do anything as far as taking apart the machine or anything.
It's accessible,
It's
right?
accessible right up at the front there. So all you'd have to do is take off your drip tray, and you're able to give that a little turn.
Okay. We'll have a video about how to adjust brew pressure. And
We
that.
sure will.
So look for that if you
Yep.
want to.
So once the pressure has reached whatever you have this set to, it would any excess pressure is going to vent back through this line and return to your reservoir. So just to kind of give that full circle effect there. All right. Now the top part of the T is going to go up this copper pipe right here, and that's what's filling your coffee boiler. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to come back down, just finish up our hydraulics here real quick. If we come this way, first thing we're going to meet is this solenoid valve. It gets an electronic charge, create a little magnetic field, which pulls a plunger forward and lets the water through this system here. Next in line is another one of your non-return valves, just like we saw right over here. Works exactly the same. Right off of that, you're going to go up and down into your service boiler.
Okay.
Okay. Just to kind of stick with the theme of on the hydraulics, we're just going to discuss the rest of these copper pipes here real quick.
Sure.
So we got this pipe coming off your service boiler. It goes to your steam valve, and it's off the top, because that's where the steam sits. We have this one over here, goes down, 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 all the way here to the bottom of your service boiler, and that's where you get your hot water from for your hot water tap.
Off the bottom?
Off the bottom there, yep. All right, and then if you look up here, this is the back of your E61 group head. You have two pipes coming in here, similar to the idea of the steam and hot water from the service boiler, only it's hotter water comes up this way, and the cooler water comes back out of the group through this one.
Yep. That
So-
goes.
So that's what's doing your thermal siphon right there. So the hotter stuff comes through, as it cools down, it goes back down through the system, reheats, and that's what's creating that temperature stability in the
there's
system.
A constant flow of that water, even when the pump isn't running, just through convection out to that group and heating things up, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, I think, unless I missed something. No, I didn't miss anything.
Well, pretty much all the hydraulics there?
Yeah, that's the hydraulics. So now we're just going to discuss what we see on the top of these boilers. So we'll start with our coffee boiler here. Not a whole lot going on up here. You got your two resettable stats. You have one for the load line, one for the neutral. If you ever had one of these trip, you can just press on this little black switch there, you'll feel a small tactile click, and that's how you know you reset it. It's such a light feeling, you may not even know that you actually did it, so sometimes just press it and see if that did the trick.
Because if those have triggered, they're not, your boiler will not heat.
Yep, exactly. Think of it like a little light switch on top of the machine or a
Yeah.
circuit breaker.
Right.
And if that's flipped, then you
No
can't,
go.
no go. Okay, so like I said, it's for your power coming in. That's the neutral side. That was your fill. High end of the heat exchanger. And right here is your NTC probe. That's the little thermometer, if you will, that tells the PID
Down here.
what the temperature is inside this boiler.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll talk a little bit more about that PID when we're done with the boilers here.
All right.
Okay. So, like I said, that's about it for the top side of the coffee boiler. I'm going to show you the bottom side here. Nice feature on this machine is this little port right here. You've got a 3mm plug on here. You take that out and lift this valve, it's a quarter turn valve, up. That is a quick drain port for this boiler. Okay?
That's nice. Now, I don't know if that's probably not on on older 600s. This is a change they made?
Yes, I'm trying to remember
James?
when they started adding these to their coffee boilers. They have this on the coffee boiler for this machine now, the 700 now, and the Synchronica now.
Right.
I forget the exact date, so
Yeah.
and we'll fact check that later
So-
and get back to you.
So if you have an older 600, you might not have that on
Yeah,
there,
you might
but-
not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a really nice feature on here. I'm going to actually flip this machine to show you another really nice feature.
Yeah, you like this a lot.
I
right?
really do. As a technician, anytime that they do something in such a manner that it's easy for me to access stuff, I just geek out. Tilt you forward. Note, I have a heart. There is a towel underneath that group head.
You're protecting
I'm not
your-
a monster,
your
I
finish.
swear.
Okay.
All right, so this whole area right here is covered by just a little panel there. There's 4 screws that hold it on. I just took it off so that you didn't have to watch me unscrew things all day.
Right.
So this is really nice because it gives you great, really quick access to everything on the bottom of your machine here. So here is another view of your solenoid valve. So if you ever need to take this off to clean it out, you can get it from the top end, but it's super, super easy to do it from this side. You only need to do those 4 screws and have the machine tilted like this, and you're right there. Whereas going from the top, you have to take all the housing off, this off, yada, yada, yada. It's a whole production. So if you ever have to clean this out, take this route. It's much easier.
It's a lot easier, sure.
And truth be told, it could be said the same for taking out your whole assembly right here, because you've only got this, this, and this. If you take those out, the only thing holding this whole assembly in place still is the 2 screws on the front of the OPV there. So if you take those out, you could actually pull that whole assembly out and descale it if you ever needed to. So.
And what do we call that? We call that the tree?
Yep, valve tree.
Valve tree.
Yep.
That whole thing, yeah.
That's, I mean, that's not going to be in a dictionary or anything, but
Yeah.
that's what we call it.
Yeah.
If you ever call in and you're doing troubleshooting, we're gonna. If you ever hear us say the valve tree, check this on the valve tree. That's what we're talking about. And it's something very similar to that on most machines, where you just have that area where all your hydraulics kind of branch out to the different boilers, or if you're on a heat exchanger, it's one for the boiler, one for the heat exchanger, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So,
But that access is just,
yeah,
I can
it's
see why you
phenomenal.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but. Oh, well, actually, if we're still
Well,
down
here-
here, I might as well show you the rest of the bottom of
Yeah.
the boiler. It's probably a little bit easier, huh?
Sure.
So as you can see on the bottom of your boilers here, this is where the cold water returns from your E61 group head on the coffee boiler. That is a better view of where the water comes off for your hot water tap on the service boiler. Then you have heating element on each of these boilers. You've got your load, your neutral, and ground. And you got 3 bolts holding each of them on. If you ever do take these out just to kind of inspect your boiler or anything, do keep in mind there is a silicone gasket that's between the element and the boiler. They don't always fare well with being taken off and put back on. So if you ever take that off, make sure you have a replacement gasket before you do that, just in case it doesn't go back together very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
No fun not being able to use your machine because you don't have a cheap gasket.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're really inexpensive and
Sure.
easy to replace. So you might as well do it if you're taking it apart anyways, right?
Right.
All right. So the only other things that I can really point out from here, there's your capillary coming from the pump over here, and that's your pressure pump pressure gauge. And over on that side there is your steam pressure gauge. And that is your discharge port. This is the back side. I'll show you that in a little bit when we go to the front of the machine.
It's coming off of the vacuum relief?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll show you that, but just so you know when I'm talking about the vacuum relief and where it goes, you'll see
Okay.
right there. All right. What's next? Off to the service boiler.
Top of this one.
Yep. So like I said, we got the connection for our steam tap. This little capillary right here is, like I said, down there was for your gauge for the steam pressure. Right here is another NTC probe, and that is for obviously the temperature inside this boiler communicating with your PID. Right here, this is the vacuum relief. This is that component that when you're first heating your machine up, for a few seconds you're going to hear a little hissing sound, and then followed by usually a little like click or a little. So that's this sealing up. The pressure coming up is going to close up a little valve in there. We're going to have a segment later on actually taking that apart so you can see a little bit better what I'm talking about. But so that tube is what comes off and goes to that discharge port that I showed you down in the bottom there.
We kind of like that vents outside the machine, right?
Yeah, yeah. I prefer it just because, you know, after time, there's just a little O-ring inside here that can start to get a little buildup on it or just not seal as well. But either way, as it's heating up, you're going to have that little bit of steam and condensation coming out of here. So it's nice that it goes down and out the front of the machine and isn't spraying across your electronics. So that's definitely a nice feature to have that tube there. Okay. Moving up to here, this is your level probe for the liquid level control circuit. This is just, whoop, that needs to be tightened down. If you ever pull on that cord and this whole thing comes right up like that, tighten down this top bolt. You don't want that to move up and down so easily.
Okay.
Because this goes directly into your boiler and is touching water, so with that pressure, if it's moving that easily, you're probably going to end up with a leak in here.
Okay.
I've never seen one be so loose that it like flew it up or anything, but you know, that's obviously a thing that could happen. So,
So this is basically a metal rod sticking down in there to sense the water level,
yep,
right?
it's basically almost like if I cut the L part off of this and stamped it flat, it's basically that. It's just, it goes straight down and it just reads the conductivity of the water and closes the circuit, which communicates to the system to open or close your solenoid and turn on or off your pump.
There's a bunch of good reasons not to use pure distilled or reverse osmosis water. One of them being that that sensor won't work if there's no minerals in the water.
Exactly. Nothing for the electrons to travel across to actually complete the circuit. So use good water, not completely clean water.
Right. You need a few minerals for flavor and to prevent over-extraction and stuff.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yep. All right, so moving on, we've got 2 more stats. Again, just got our neutral, we got our load, same idea. If it ever trips, little black plug there, click.
And again, your boiler won't heat if those are tripped.
Exactly,
so,
yep.
Okay.
And yeah, we're gonna have a segment about testing all this stuff later. So
Sure.
if you are experiencing that problem, keep your eyes open. All right. Now, right in the center here, this is our safety. So this one is rated to, you can see usually on any of these, they should have a safety rating on them somewhere. This one you see right there is 2.5 bar. So that is the maximum pressure that this can reach before that safety valve will blow open.
That's a pretty high, because this machine will go a little bit hotter on the steam or service boiler side than a lot of machines, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same as a 700 or synchronic. It can go near 2 bar pressure in there.
Yep. So that's why they added
Yeah.
that nice higher rating on there.
Yep.
So I believe the 600s came out after they had rolled out all of that updated
The upgrade.
profile to all their machines. So
all
even
600s.
the old ones are going to have 2.5 bar on there. So if you're ever replacing them, just always make sure that you're getting one that's at 2.5.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you may blow it off for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the idea. If this ever goes off, it overheated for some reason. If it blows off, there are some styles out there in the world that if they blow off, you can't reuse it. You have to
Single use.
replace it. Yeah. This one is not like that. It can seal back up.
Okay.
But I have noticed in my experience that they tend to be a little bit weaker, and they'll start to kind of
they're gone.
hiss a little bit at a lower temperature after they've blown off, especially if it's an older machine, you got some scale in there and stuff. We never, ever, ever recommend rebuilding these. So if you're ever having an issue with it, just replace it.
Safety first. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Stick to one more thing over on this side. That's it for our boilers, but you'll see right in front of your service boiler is this little switcher guy here. That is your brew lever switch. If you look at the front of the machine here, when you pull your lever up, it pushes in on that little tab there. You actually heard that click.
Yep.
It's the sound of it closing the circuit.
I like it's got a little roller on that contact, huh?
Yeah, that's it's a really nice thing, because you will see after some of the different styles of these switches have just a post that sticks out, and it's rounded and smooth. But after years and years of going like that, you end up getting a pretty gnarly wear spot on the back there. So it's really nice that it has the roller on there, because it prolongs the life of that finish on there. Not that we often stare at the back of our lever, but you know.
But hey, it's a nice little, it's like a roller cam in a car engine, you know, it's a higher quality construction.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
See how many things I can find, the little nuances about this machine that make me really like it. So, all right. Now we're going to come over to the other side and talk about some electronics.
Well, there's something I like.
What do you
The
like?
electronics are like way far away from the heat and well kind of shielded there to some extent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. You got this nice wall here, protects it from. I like that the relays are on the bottom like this, so if you get water coming down on here, it's not going to get right on top of your relays and short them out. It also helps with heat transfer. And it's up and close to the vents of the top panel and everything, so that heat, because relays do produce a bit of heat, and they have a heat transfer compound between the relay and this top support area here, and that kind of helps suck the heat away from the relay, and then it just dissipates into the air. So the construction of it was well thought out, and I really enjoy it. So you've got 2 relays, 1 for each of your boilers. If you're ever wondering which one goes where, you can always just follow your black wire right off of it. And you can see this front one here goes to your coffee boiler, and this back one here goes to the service boiler. So it's funny because I always say B for back, B for brew boiler, and that's how it's always on the Synchronica and the 700, but it's the opposite here, but it's actually almost not, because if you just took this and put it on this side, like it
Then
is
it
on
would
those
be-
machines, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that kind of throws you for a loop. Almost
Yeah.
like when you're working on the E61 and you're trying to screw in this bottom valve here, and it's like, oh wait, I'm upside down. So
Right.
quirks.
And just quick, so what is a relay? What does the relay actually do for those who don't know?
So the relay is what is allowing power to go from the board to your limits, and then from your limits to your heating element. So these are the power switch, basically,
Little switches,
for your element.
Using a very lower voltage signal to control a lot of volts going to those boilers, basically.
Yes. Yep. So you have these the smaller wires that go on here. You can see that. So on the front here, you got black and red. These are smaller. These are like the communication wires. And then you have a brown and a black. This brown is the power 120-ish going to your relay. And then once the signal is sent via these to turn the switch on, the power comes out of the black wire, that side,
And over to
your stat there, and then from the stat down to your element.
down to the heating element.
Yep.
Okay.
So those are your relays. You got two boards here. You've got your brains of the operation. That's the main board, the control board, and that basically controls all the functions in the machine. You know, when it's gonna full, when it's gonna heat up, open your solenoids, all that stuff. So.
And
The little
functions, because
things.
this has some extras on it, like you can have it shut off after a certain time of non-use.
Yep.
Or
Yeah, you
like
got
the backflush warnings.
Yep, backflush warnings, eco mode, things of that nature.
All happens in there.
Yep, all happens in there. You control those functions via your PID. That's how you tell it what settings you want it to do, but this is what will actually perform those tasks.
Okay.
So if you're ever having a weird issue with, say your eco mode isn't working right, it could be either this or this. Usually if it's your PID, you're going to experience other weird issues with it, so
Sure.
it'd probably be your board, but
Okay.
it's a little symbiotic relationship between the two. And this board right here, this one is a little less involved. This one is just the DC power supply for the PID. So it's one function in life, really.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a good way to test, though, if you ever have an issue with your PID, if it's not lighting up and you've got water in the system, then there's a good chance that your supply, you could just test to make sure that you have DC voltage coming out of here and supplying your PID.
Okay.
So, and then down there you got all your connections that travel off into many different directions there for controlling all said stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So as we keep talking about Mr. PID over here, you got this little protective sticker that goes over the top. That's just there to make sure that water isn't easily dropping down into here and onto the board and everything. So you got all your wires going in there for the DC power supply, communication with the board, your relays and all that stuff. You follow, there's these wires right here. You got your gray and purple and your black and red. These both go off to your NTC probes. So you follow that one up there. So the purple and gray goes to your coffee boiler, black and red goes to your service boiler. And then underneath the PID, you got a couple more things here. It's the main power switch. Really nice area for if you ever need to replace it, because like anything that you're turning on and off, if you don't use your eco mode and you're just turning on and off all the time, a couple times a day, not that you're not going to get a good life out of this, but it's like anything else mechanically. You turn it on and off enough times, it's eventually going to fail. So if that ever happens, it's in a really nice area that you don't have to fuss with it. It's not too buried deep or anything. Just a nut right on the front here. You just unscrew that and you can pull the whole thing out and replace
Easy
it.
replacement.
Yeah. And then right underneath that is your green LED for your power indication. And that's about it for the electronics on it. It's a pretty simple construction here. So
And just a quick look at the front, because that OPV, we kind of talked about that a little bit, but that's where you'd adjust your your pressure there, your brew pressure generally.
Yep, yeah, that's where you do that. If you ever do it, we'll have a video on how to do it precisely,
Yeah.
but yep, all you have to do is pull your drip tray out, put a slotted screwdriver or a flathead on it, and turn it to whichever direction you would like to change temperature to.
And we got those big old sprung valves up here, right?
Yep,
Nice
these guys, they are very nice valves. We got the side dismount here of the, I don't know if that's really the proper terminology, but I'm going to say it is. Yeah, why not?
Sure. The wands there?
Yeah. These are actually the exact same taps as you would find on your Pro 500 and the Pro 700. Obviously, handles look a bit different on the newer style 700s, but the basic construction and how you would take them apart is exactly the same. The only thing that really differs is because they are hung in this manner instead of that manner, these wands are of a different construction, but everything that's inside of them
The
is still
valves
the
just
same.
turn 90 degrees, basically.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but yeah, that's about it for internal components. So,
All right. Well, Brian, thanks so much for taking us through that tour.
my pleasure.